If you thought the WNBA drama couldn't possibly get worse, strap in, because this one blew the roof off. On live television, in front of thousands of fans and an entire broadcast team, Brittney Griner was caught muttering a racially charged phrase directed at Caitlin Clark. Trash-effing white girl. The mic picked it up, the cameras caught it, and the internet exploded. But the moment the clip hit Twitter, if you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. It didn't just cause backlash. It unleashed a full-blown reckoning. And leading the charge was entrepreneur and commentator Patrick Bet-David, who absolutely torched the league, the media, and Griner herself for what he called a disgusting double standard and a sign of deeper cultural rot in women's basketball. This wasn't just a hot take. This was a full-throttle call-out. And honestly, he said what everyone else was thinking but was too scared to say out loud. The comment that started the fire. Let's start at the top. The incident happened during what was supposed to be a competitive but routine WNBA matchup. Caitlin Clark, as usual, was doing her thing, dropping dimes, hitting deep threes, and drawing more viewers than half the league combined. Then comes Griner, frustrated, flailing, and visibly losing her cool. In a heated exchange, she turns to a nearby player and says, loud enough for broadcast mic to catch, "Trash-effing white girl." And just like that, the mood shifted. Because this wasn't just trash talk. This was a racial slur, captured on national TV, aimed directly at the most high-profile white player in the league. Now imagine, just for 1 second, if that comment had been flipped. If a white player had said anything remotely racial to a black athlete, what do you think would have happened? The league would have had a press release out before halftime. Players would have condemned it. Media outlets would be running think pieces for weeks. There'll be fines, suspensions, sponsors walking. Chaos. But with Griner, silence. Patrick Bet-David, unfiltered and unapologetic. Enter Patrick Bet-David. While most commentators tiptoed around the issue, Bet-David dove straight in. He called the comment racist, plain and simple. And more than that, he called out the entire culture of the WNBA for enabling this kind of behavior. His words were sharp, direct, and impossible to ignore. Brittney Griner was freed from a Russian prison in a high-stakes international trade. And this is how she repays her country? By spewing hate on national television. He wasn't just mad at Griner. He was mad at the WNBA for staying silent. Mad at the media for ignoring it. Mad at the culture that lets certain players act however they want with zero accountability. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. The prison trade that still haunts. Let's not forget the context here. Brittney Griner isn't just another player. She's someone the United States traded an international arms dealer to bring home. Victor Bout, a.k.a. the Merchant of Death, was swapped in a high-profile political deal to free Griner from Russian custody. At the time, it was framed as a national triumph, a stand for justice, a symbol of American values. But now, it just feels like buyer's remorse. Because the gratitude, the humility, the professionalism you'd expect from someone in Griner's position, none of it has shown up. Instead, we're seeing entitlement, disrespect, and divisive behavior that betrays everything that trade was supposed to represent. Bet-David nailed it. Don't get handed your freedom at that level and then turn around and mock the fans, insult fellow players, and act like you're above reproach. The league's deafening silence. One of the most jarring elements in this whole saga is the WNBA's total silence. No disciplinary action. No public statement. No investigation. Nothing. Let's be real. If a male athlete said this in the NBA, they'd be dragged across every news outlet, suspended, fined, and forced into a public apology tour before their next game. But Griner? Protected. This isn't equality. This is favoritism. And it's wrecking the league's credibility. Bet-David pointed out the double standard with brutal clarity. If the roles were reversed, this would be a career-ending moment. But when it's someone like Griner, suddenly everyone forgets how to speak. Caitlin Clark, the star the league refuses to protect. Then there's Caitlin Clark. Let's give this woman her flowers. She is the face of the WNBA, the ticket seller, the ratings driver, The reason people are tuning in who haven't watched women's basketball in years. And yet, she's treated like an outsider. Mocked, fouled, slurred, and now, made to shoulder the weight of racial tension that she didn't create. She's handled it with professionalism and poise that puts most veterans to shame. But where is the support? Why isn't the league protecting their biggest asset? Patrick Bet-David didn't mince words. Caitlin Clark is the best thing to happen to the WNBA in decades, and you're letting her be disrespected every week because you're scared to upset the wrong people. That's the painful truth. The league would rather stay politically correct than do what's right. Media madness. The Angel Reese Michael Jordan moment. It's not just Griner. Bet-David took a moment to torch the media for another recent circus act. ESPN comparing Angel Reese to Michael Jordan. Let that sink in. A player with one of the lowest shooting percentages in the league, whose biggest strength is rebounding, was compared to the greatest basketball player of all time. Why? Because the media wants it to be true. They're desperate to elevate certain players into superstardom, even when their stats say otherwise. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, who's out here leading rookies in nearly every category, breaking records and dominating the court, constantly undermined, mocked, and labeled overhyped. This is what happens when narrative matters more than numbers. And it's killing the sport from the inside. A culture problem, not just a player problem. Ultimately, Bet-David's argument isn't just about Griner. It's about the culture that let this happen. The WNBA has allowed entitlement and identity politics to take priority over performance and professionalism. Instead of building a league based on excellence, it's propping up players based on media narratives, social agendas, and political optics. The result? A toxic atmosphere where fans are tuning out, sponsors are walking on eggshells, and young stars like Clark are left to fend for themselves. This culture isn't just unappealing. It's unsustainable, a fork in the road. So, where does the WNBA go from here? They have a choice. Do they confront this incident head-on and reestablish some integrity? Or do they keep sweeping it under the rug, hoping the outrage dies down? Because here's the reality. Fans aren't stupid. They saw what Griner said. They saw the silence. And they're watching to see what happens next. This isn't just a moment. It's a test. If the league fails to act, it confirms what critics like Bet-David are saying. That accountability only applies to some players, and never to the ones who play by a different set of rules. The ripple effect. What Griner's comment did to the league's reputation. When Brittney Griner muttered, "trash-effing white girl" on live television, she didn't just insult one player. She cracked open a conversation that the WNBA has been trying to avoid for years. This wasn't just about one moment of bad judgment. It was a mirror held up to the league's face, reflecting all the unresolved tensions, buried hypocrisy, and selective outrage that have been simmering beneath the surface. And now, everything's out in the open, because that one line, spoken casually, carelessly, reverberated across the sport. It's not just a PR crisis. It's a reputation crisis. And reputation, in a league still fighting for viewership, matters more than ever. Fans aren't just disappointed. They're insulted by the silence, by the lack of accountability, and by the clear signal that some players are held to a different standard than others. The unspoken rules of WNBA politics. Within the WNBA, there are players, and then there are protected players. The ones you can criticize without consequence, and the ones you can't. The ones the league will reprimand instantly, and the ones who get a pass. And everyone knows it. It's an open secret that if someone like Caitlin Clark or any other white player had made a racially insensitive remark, intentional or not, the consequences would have been immediate and public. There would have been press conferences, apologies, and probably a suspension. But when Griner crossed the line, silence. That silence doesn't just speak volumes. It screams double standard. And fans are tired of pretending not to notice. What the league fails to understand is that their silence is not neutral. It's a choice. And every day they fail to address this moment is another day that choice erodes trust in the fairness of the sport. How the players reacted, or didn't. Let's talk about the locker room. The WNBA is built on sisterhood, unity, and mutual respect. Or at least that's what the public is told. But in the aftermath of the Griner SLUR, where were the statements from her peers? Where were the players, especially those who speak loudly on social issues, condemning her words? The answer is nowhere. And that's not just disappointing. That's revealing. Because if the league is going to claim to stand for justice, equality, and accountability, then its players need to be consistent in who they call out. You can't advocate for social justice with one breath and ignore racial slurs with the next. You can't demand grace for yourself and refuse to give to others. That's not activism. That's opportunism. And it sends a message to fans that integrity only matters when it's convenient. The economic cost of hypocrisy. Let's get real. This isn't just a moral issue. It's an economic one. Sponsors don't like controversy. They especially don't like ignored controversy. And every brand associated with the WNBA right now is side-eyeing the scandal, wondering if it's worth the headache. Because when racial slurs become part of your brand story, and the organization does nothing to address them, those partnerships start to look risky. That's not speculation. That's business. The WNBA has spent years trying to build legitimacy, investment, and commercial partnerships. But those bridges can burn quickly when the league sends a message that accountability is optional for certain stars. And let's not forget, fan loyalty is fragile. You can spend decades building a fan base and lose it overnight if people feel betrayed, especially when those fans are showing up for players like Caitlin Clark, who are delivering results without the drama. The price of player power without responsibility. One of the things that makes professional leagues work is balance between player influence and league authority. But in the WNBA right now, it's clear. Some players are above the rules. Brittney Griner has become a symbol of that imbalance. She's not just a player. She's a brand, a political figure, and a media darling. And because of that, it seems like no one's willing to challenge her, even when she's wrong. But unchecked player power doesn't just hurt the league, it hurts the players too. Because when stars start believing they're untouchable, they stop growing, they stop listening, they stop leading. What Griner did was not just unprofessional, it was irresponsible. And the league's failure to check her doesn't just protect her behavior, it reinforces the worst parts of sports culture: entitlement, ego, and moral inconsistency. The Caitlin Clark factor, the league's reluctant savior. Let's talk about what Caitlin Clark represents, not just to fans, but to the entire WNBA business model right now. She's the one drawing record viewership, the one boosting ticket sales, the one non-WNBA fans are showing up to see. She's the closest thing this league has had to a mainstream star in years. And yet, she's treated like a problem. Griner's slur didn't happen in a vacuum. It's part of a wider pattern of resentment, passive aggression, and outright hostility that Clark has faced from veterans and commentators alike. Why? Because she's successful? Because she doesn't know her place? This isn't just about race. It's about ego, about who gets to lead the next era of women's basketball. And the answer the league should be embracing is obvious. Clark is a threat to the WNBA. She's its lifeline. But instead of rallying around her, too many players are rallying against her. And the league is letting it happen. That's a fatal mistake. A turning point for women's sports. The Griner incident isn't just a WNBA problem. It's a moment that every women's league, team, and executive should be paying attention to. Because what's being revealed here isn't just one player's bad behavior. It's a test of the values we claim to hold in sports: fairness, respect, inclusion, accountability. And right now, those values are being exposed as selective, conditional, performative. Women's sports have always demanded to be taken seriously. But seriousness isn't just about skill, it's about conduct, about holding everyone to the same standards, about being honest when one of your own steps out of line. If leagues can't police themselves, they won't be trusted to grow. And that's a shame, because women's basketball is having a moment. But that moment can vanish overnight if it's wrapped in hypocrisy. What accountability would actually look like? So let's be practical. What should the WNBA do? First, a formal statement. Acknowledge what was said. Condemn it publicly. Second, disciplinary action. A fine. A suspension. Something that shows there are consequences, even for stars. Third, a public apology. Not a notes app screenshot. A real, on-camera acknowledgement from Griner. showing remorse and understanding. And finally, a league-wide recommitment to standards, a review of conduct policies, mandatory training on racial language and respect, a reset, because this scandal doesn't need to be a permanent stain. It can be a turning point, but only if the league is brave enough to confront it. This is not just about canceling anyone. It's about restoring balance, making the league stronger, more consistent, and more respected. Brittney Griner doesn't need to be exiled, but she does need to be held accountable. Not because fans are angry, but because leadership demands it. And Caitlin Clark? She deserves more than just applause. She deserves protection. She deserves to play in a league where she's valued, not vilified. This moment isn't about politics. It's about principle. And whether the WNBA likes it or not, the spotlight is on. If they do nothing, they lose credibility. If they do something, they earn back a little respect. And if you're with us, if you believe in accountability, in calling out hypocrisy, and in defending the future of women's basketball, hit subscribe, because we're not done talking, and we won't look away. The fan fallout, where trust starts to crack. The WNBA is learning a hard lesson right now. Fans are paying attention. They're not just passive spectators anymore. They're watching every play, listening to every post-game comment, and more importantly, seeing what's not being said. When Brittney Griner insulted Caitlin Clark with a racial slur on live television, fans didn't just react to the slur. They reacted to the aftermath. Or, more precisely, the lack of one. No apology, no statement, no action, just a void. And that silence, it wasn't neutral. It was insulting. Fans expect accountability. They expect fairness. And when they don't get it, they start asking questions. Why does it seem like some players are allowed to cross lines with no consequences? Why is the league so quick to promote equality, but so slow to enforce it? Those aren't fringe questions. They're mainstream frustrations. And if the WNBA continues to ignore them, they'll lose something far more valuable than social media buzz. They'll lose trust. The business of fairness, how integrity builds revenue. Look, sports leagues are businesses. The goal is to sell tickets, boost ratings, and lock in big sponsorships. But all that starts with one thing: credibility. If fans believe the game is fair, they'll invest. If they believe the league is biased or politically compromised, they'll tune out. It's that simple. The WNBA has made huge strides in growing its brand, but that growth is fragile. And nothing undermines it faster than perceived favoritism. By letting Griner's comments slide, the league is sending a message. Certain players are above the rules. That message won't just cost them goodwill. It'll cost them viewers. And viewers are the currency of every successful league. The narrative clash. Who gets to be the hero? Let's get into the deeper, messier part of this whole thing. The battle over who gets to be the hero of the WNBA. For years, the league has tried to crown its champions based on more than just performance. Identity, symbolism, politics. These things have played a huge role in determining who gets promoted, who gets protected, and who gets sidelined. Enter Caitlin Clark, a player who didn't check the usual boxes. She's not loud, not radical, not backed by an ideological machine. She's just exceptional, skilled, focused, and that's what makes her threatening to the existing order. Clark didn't ask to be the league's face. She became it through pure output, and that terrifies people. Because if performance becomes a standard, then a lot of narratives start falling apart. A lot of overhyped players start looking overrated. And the media's favorite storylines start to unravel. Griner's attack on Clark wasn't just personal. It was symbolic, a rejection of what Clark represents, a return to merit-based respect, veteran resentment, why the old guard is struggling. There's a quiet war happening inside the WNBA, between the veterans who've been grinding in relative obscurity for years, and the new wave of talent that's drawing mainstream attention seemingly overnight. Players like Clark are changing the entire perception of women's basketball. Suddenly, people care. Suddenly, arenas are filling up, and for some veterans, that feels unfair. They think, why is she getting all this love when we've been here the whole time? And that resentment is boiling over in some ugly ways. Hard fouls, hostile press conferences, passive-aggressive comments, and now, slurs. But here's the truth. The league's rise in popularity isn't about when you arrived. It's about what you bring. Clark brought eyes to the league that no one else has. That's not a knock on veteran players. It's a wake-up call. The league isn't punishing veterans by celebrating rookies. It's finally rewarding results. And that's how professional sports should work. The emotional toll on Clark, and what it means for future stars. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark for a minute. Not as a player, but as a person. Imagine being 22 in your rookie season, and suddenly you're the biggest name in a league that doesn't seem to want you. You're filling seats, hitting game winners, and doing your job, but your peers won't acknowledge you. The media questions your worth. Your name is a political football. And now, you're being called racial slurs on air. It's exhausting. It's unfair. And it sends a terrible message to every young woman watching. Is this the price of success? If you rise too fast, do you become a target? Because if that's the case, the league won't just lose Clark. It'll lose every potential star who watches what she's going through and decides, nah, not worth it. The truth hurts, but it heals. Patrick Bet David didn't say what was easy. He said what was true. And in a league struggling to find its identity, sometimes that's exactly what's needed. A harsh spotlight on the cracks. Because the only way forward is through honesty. Griner crossed a line. The league ignored it. The media looked away. And fans? They noticed. The question now isn't whether the controversy dies down. It's whether the WNBA has the courage to learn from it. If you want the real talk, the raw truth, and no-filter breakdowns of sports' biggest messes, subscribe. We'll keep watching. We'll keep calling it out. And we're just getting started.